All right, so a great big welcome everybody to Wicked Webinars. Hooray! And you will notice this is a bit different because I'm going to go straight into the content. Now, normally on a webinar, as you probably have noticed if you've attended lots of other webinars, there is that half an hour at the beginning, and sometimes it goes on and on and on where people really set things up into context and do a great big long introduction. Now, the first thing I want to do, and this is actually kind of my first bit of content really that I want to share with you, that is really important because people do need to know who you are. People do really need to know why they're listening. However, that doesn't have to take up an awful lot of time, and it doesn't have to happen on the webinar itself. So I was chatting with a really good friend of mine, and we were moaning about the fact that the content that you actually get out of a webinar is limited because of all the time that is spent on this sort of guff in the beginning. And I said, yeah, and it's kind of one of those things that's a bit annoying because there will be people on the webinar. There are people here this evening that know me really, really well. I've got people here who are part of my mentoring program. They do not need or want to sit through another introduction of me telling everybody all about me. So it's not going to happen. I'm just going to give the very briefest thing. But for those who don't know me, there's that opportunity to watch the video. And if you haven't already seen it, the link is there in your chat window, so just checking that it's still there. Yep, so in the chat window I've put a link to what I'm calling the pre-webinar goodies, where there is that introduction all about me and why you should be listening to webinars. I'm not going to go on about this, but stick your hands up for me. I'm just going to put everybody's hands down. Stick your hands up if you already agree that webinars are a fantastic way of promoting your business and that it's something that you should be doing. Okay, brilliant. Hands are going up like mad. Fantastic. All right, so if you haven't put your hand up, you're either off browsing and doing something else, or you haven't watched that video yet. So, and it's quite funny, go to webinars a bit like Big Brother. I can see who's paying attention and who isn't, and who's putting their hands up and who doesn't, all that kind of thing. So if I haven't convinced you yet, go and watch that video. There are 12 compelling reasons in there why you should be looking at webinars, and one of those reasons is that, and I'm just going to say this on the webinar tonight, it is the fastest, easiest way of getting you to promote your business, without question. I've been online now 3 years. I spent the first 2 years fannying around, if I'm honest, and I hid behind opt-in pages, sales pages, Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts. I did a couple of webinars which really quite bombed, and it shook my confidence, and I thought, no, well, I don't really want to do that again. I'm going to do all of this other stuff first. And I kept thinking, I need to learn more stuff. How many of you feel that way, that, oh, before I do anything else, I've got to learn more stuff? It's a very easy kind of, yeah, absolutely, Trace. Thanks, yes. It's one of those things that I had this kind of epiphany, if you like. I had a moment where I realized, you know what, I'm an avid learner. I can buy program after program after program, but there comes a point when you have to take off the teacher hat and you have to put, other way around, you have to take off the student hat and you have to put on your teacher hat. And webinars are the best way of doing it. And I was just sharing with some of the people who came on early that once I started doing webinars, people started taking notice of me. It started off with the people who were in my same peer group. So people that I was, learning, most people know that Jo Barnes, the amazing Jo Barnes, has been my mentor, and I started off with her learning all about Facebook and how to make fan pages and that kind of stuff. And within the Social Networking Academy members group, I got to know people. But it wasn't until I started running webinars myself that some of those people suddenly started realizing that I had something to offer, and all of a sudden I'd start getting invited to do interviews with them and all that sort of thing, which was amazing. And I've been interviewed by some wonderful, wonderful people who are all part of, my peer group, if you like, within the SNA. But then I noticed that people outside of those peer groups started to contact me. There's a lady that I met when I was coaching 10 years ago. She suddenly contacted me and got in touch and started sharing my stuff. And then only yesterday, somebody that I really don't know hardly at all contacted me and invited me to take part in a telesummit. This has got to be just because of the reach that I'm making through putting on regular webinars and being consistent with it and claiming that spot, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. All right, so this is all about you doing the same thing. So this is all about you sitting there in front of your laptop and reaching out to other people who are also in front of their laptops or computers or Macs or tablets or, whatever devices that you want to use. It's all about you getting out there and doing this consistently to widen your reach. And this is the thing that's really important. Now, there's a couple of things that you're going to need to know. So what you're going to need to know is quite simply the context. Webinars are just a way of getting your message out there, and a lot of the things that I teach, particularly in my programs, are things that you can also duplicate, whether you're speaking on stage or in meetings or through videos. And the core things that you need are basically confidence. You need to have the right content. You need to have that charisma, that kind of just personality, and you need to let that shine through, and you need to just keep on improving it. You're not going to start with the perfect webinar presentation. You're not going to start with something that can't get any better. You're going to improve it all the way, but you can't improve anything unless you start it. So the whole thing is to get started doing it. At the heart of that is selling. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You need to sell your ideas to your audience, and of course, if you're going to be successful at running an online or offline business, or a business which is a combination of the two, you need to be selling your programs, your products, your services, your coaching, and all of that kind of stuff too. So all of these things are really, really important. If you want to know about me, I've already said there's a video. You can go and find out by watching that video why I believe I'm qualified to talk about speaking in general and webinars in particular. So I'm not going to say any more about that, except for go and watch the video if you haven't already seen it, or if you don't already know me. Some of you obviously already know me pretty well. So what I'm going to be covering then is the 12 compelling reasons, and again, that is done by video. Most of you are here because you already believe that you need to run webinars. I'm just going to reinforce that message through the video. All right, so I don't need to waste time tonight when I can be spending more time on other stuff. I'm going to show you how running webinars is just as easy as ABC. We're going to talk about 15 different traffic tactics to fill your webinars. I've made a big porky pie here. I'm not going to give you 5 webinar reviews. I'm going to give you more. I've added some since. So I'm going to be telling you a lot more about some other platforms. I'm going to be telling you about some of the mistakes that make you look amateur. Now, there's a fine line, which we'll talk about later, between allowing fear of making mistakes to hold you back and not bothering in the first place to at least try and look professional. All right, so it doesn't follow that just because I say don't worry about not making mistakes that you should be slapdash and not try your absolute very best to produce the best webinar that you can. So we're going to look at some of those mistakes that make you look amateur. I'm going to give you the #1 key insight to webinars that will sell, and that's not just webinars actually. This insight is the same and it's true for however you sell your stuff, whether that's videos, online, even through a sales page, on stage, whatever. Okay, there's a #1 insight to how you can sell your stuff more easily. How to keep your audience with you, and that is something which is quite challenging because let's face it, when you're on a stage, you've got an audience in the room, and it's a little bit transparent if they get up and leave. So most people don't do that. They're a bit of a captive audience. Yes, people do get up and go out, but mostly people will stay there because, it would be a bit uncomfortable for them leaving a seminar halfway through. With a webinar, that is totally you have no control over that. You know, as far as I know, well, actually, I do know. Because I can see. That's one of the beauties of GoToWebinar. It tells you who's paying attention and who's off browsing. But on a webinar, honestly, people can go and browse. They can be spending their time on Facebook, on Twitter, on I don't know, LinkedIn or whatever, Google Plus, whatever floats their boat. Okay, I would strongly urge you not to do that, and I will know if you're there or not because GoToWebinar tells me. But there's other ways, you know. What you want to do is really engage people. So we'll be looking at how we do that. Then what I'm going to be doing is looking then at some killer strategies to monetize your webinars. Because giving free, I mean, I did this for ages. I gave free webinars and free webinars and free webinars, and it was brilliant for getting me known. It was brilliant for you know, building my list. It wasn't very good for putting bread on the table. So we need to be able to monetize the webinars as well. All right, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to very briefly spend 5 minutes telling you how I'm going to help with the webinars and speaking in general. Answer any questions that you've got, and that's it. Okay, so I've already given you some of the content, so let's get right into the ABC of it now. First of all, it is, you know, one of the things that we want is an audience sellout. Okay, so that's what the A is all about. We need to make sure there are bums on seats. We need to make sure that there are people there. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's kind of a bit difficult to sell anything really. So what we need to do is start looking at some of the traffic techniques for that. So what we're going to look at is different ways. Now, you're probably not going to want to do all of these. You'll probably want to, you know, just focus on a few of them. But the more you do, and, you know, once you build your list up, the more that you do, then what's going to happen is people kind of get used to it. They know that you're running them. And then you can try different avenues. So you can add to this as you go along. So the first one, and the most obvious, is your email list. You know, one of the things that you know, it makes total sense for you to do is when you run a webinar to invite your email list. Depending on how many webinars you run, depends on how often you send invites out to that email list. Now, there's a balance here. You don't want to be annoying your email followers by sending out too many. And, you know, I'm sure I don't get this right. You know, there are, and in fact, I've had some people who say, I don't hear from you enough. In fact, somebody told me recently, why don't you ever tell us when you put a post on your blog? Because you know, most of my free tips and information goes on my blog or on my Facebook pages. And this guy, you know, who actually I know really quite well, said to me, but I don't know that you're doing that. Well, I don't want to just send out an email just to tell somebody I'd put a new blog up. But actually that's what he wanted. So you do have to keep in regular touch. But obviously then there are some people who think it's too much and they will unsubscribe. Now the chances are if they think that you're contacting them too often and they unsubscribe, then they are probably never going to have bought from you anyway. If somebody unsubscribes because I send free stuff, it's telling me that they're not actually that interested in my topic. It might be that it's just not the right time for them. It could be that they've changed their mind. They're going in a different direction. It could be that they just don't connect with me. You know, we have to remember, guys, we've all got our own personalities, and it's a bit like a kind of Marmite thing. Some people are going to love you and some people are going to hate you. So there's going to be some people who want to hear from me often, and there are going to be some people who just think, nah, I don't want to hear from you. Now, there are some people out there who send emails constantly selling stuff. You know, they're big into affiliate marketing and they're selling, you know, and that gets irritating. And, you know, I don't like that. And, you know, even when I've bought a product that I really like, I will unsubscribe if they then send me 2 or 3 emails a day selling me other people's stuff, you know, especially if it's unrelated. I don't want that. However, if you're sending free stuff, free webinars, free information, then, you know, tell people about it. So, you know, you've got your email list. Then what we've got is, you know, email your other contacts. So you've got your email opt-in list, but no doubt you go to networking, you go to conferences, you meet people, you pick up their business cards. drop them emails as well, invite them. And then, of course, if they do opt in, they come on your kind of, marketing list as well. So email your other contacts too. Then, of course, you've got good old Facebook and Facebook events and Google Plus events. I'm going to put these two up together because they're pretty much the same thing. You just create an event, invite everybody. It's a really good way of doing it. I have to say Google Plus is easier to do this than Facebook, because with Facebook you've got to invite everybody manually. Now there are codes that you can get. If you go into Google, you can kind of invite absolutely everybody by putting a code in. It doesn't work in Firefox, it works in Chrome, but and it's not that easy, and sometimes I'm too lazy and I can't be bothered to do all of that, so I just put the event up on Facebook and then share it on my pages and share it on my profile. However, with Google Plus, you can share it publicly and you can share it in your circles. It's much easier to share the event in Google Plus than it is in Facebook. Obviously, the other things that you can do is you can have, when you do put a Facebook post up, you can put up, you can promote the post. Now, that's different from Facebook ads, and you can just spend $5 on promoting a Facebook post. So you can do that in a really low-cost way, which is brilliant. The next thing that you can do is you can obviously do Facebook ads and any Google pay-per-click ads. There we go, they're not coming up on my slides. That's better. So you can do Facebook ads and pay-per-click ads. Obviously now we're looking at more of a cost, but again, one of the things I do like is that you can set a budget for those costs. I would suggest that you don't start running to this kind of money until you've at least got a few webinars under your belt and you know that they work, you know that people like them, people are going to buy from them, and then when you know you've got a winning formula, then you can get out there and promote it and get new blood to it. Obviously, you've got your other social medias. You can post on LinkedIn, you can post on Twitter. You can go into groups and forums, you can put a little poster up and you can post it on Pinterest. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and this was quite by accident actually when I first started doing webinars, what I was doing was making a video for my opt-in page. So I was hosting that video on YouTube, and then I noticed people were making comments under the YouTube. They were finding me through YouTube, not through the registration page. And then, of course, there was no way of them, they didn't know how to register for the webinar that I was talking about. But what you can do is you can make sure you put your registration link in the description on YouTube. So if you've got a YouTube video, make sure that you, because people subscribe to you on YouTube, and people will find you through YouTube when they're not finding you in any of the other formulas. So it's a real good way of doing it. Now, one of the most obvious and successful ways of getting traffic is JV partners. That said, this is probably one of the most difficult. And I would suggest that you don't even try to get JV partners until you've at least got a couple of webinars under your belt, because you don't want to waste that opportunity on something which is a bit of a dress rehearsal, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, I had my best ever month when I did a JV partnership with the lovely Jo Barnes, because she sent out details of my webinar to her list, and a lot of people got to know me because of Jo's recommendation. It was absolutely amazing. So this is what you should be doing, is forming relationships with key people of influence in your niche and your field. Now, not everybody can do JVs with you. Because what you've got to think of is how many people are going to be asking them. I remember when I first started doing this, I was taught, and it was not Jo, this was another program that I was taking part in, and they were teaching, again, the JVs was a way of running webinars, and that you just needed to go and ask somebody if they'll JV with you. So I thought, well, okay, I'll ask that person. I asked the teacher. And they refused me, and I got quite offended. I got kind of, hang on a minute, I've spent quite a lot of money on your program, and yet you're refusing a JV with me. But thinking about this sensibly, there were 100 people of us on that program. That person could never JV with all of us, because otherwise they would have totally destroyed the trust with their list, because there's only so many, people. Like, for example, I worry about overdoing it, sending my own information to my list, let alone sending other people's information to my list. Does that make sense? Yes. So you have to make sure that your JV partners, it's better to have a small circle of quality JV partners than it is to have a big circle and then think, oh my goodness. And it's quite funny because I've got now a lovely little circle of my own that I met through my mastermind group. But when we first started, we kind of all wanted to do webinars at the same time, and then all of a sudden it was, oh my god, I'm having to send like 5 emails to my list in 1 week, and that's just not, that's really pushing the mark. So, but if you've got a small group of people, you can actually decide, right, this month, I'm promoting, or this week I'm promoting, next month, another person's promoting, and just making sure that you schedule stuff so that you don't clash. And if you do clash, that you don't get offended if, that person says, I'm sorry, I can't promote your webinar this week because I'm promoting mine. Does that make sense? Yeah? Fantastic. Okay, put your hands up for me, guys, if what I'm saying so far makes sense, especially about the JV partners. And what I want you to do is I want you to type in the box. I want to know that you're all awake and listening to me. I want you to type in the questions box who you would love to have a JV partner with. And I also want you to kind of type in the box, what you might do to get that person on board. So let me have some of your ideas. It'd be nice to know what topics. Let me know what your thing is. What's your topic? Because who knows, I might be able to put 2 of you in touch or whatever. So I want you to type in a box and tell me. Brilliant. Thank you. Spot on and loud and clear. Fantastic. And lovely jubbly. Oh, we've got some new people coming on as well. Hiya Sheena. I've got Superman listening to my webinar. How fantastic is that? Welcome, Superman. Yeah, performance coaching. Okay, so topic is eBay and Amazon. Oh, now, gosh, there's got to be some people. Okay, stick your hands up for me if you have either written or in the process of writing a book. No? Really? Oh, I've got 1 hand. We got some more. Okay, now what I want you to do, guys, fabulous. I got some more hands going up. What I want you to do is go over to my Webinar Diva page and start talking to each other, because if you've got somebody who's writing books, somebody who's a bit of an Amazon whiz, doesn't it make sense that you two would be a great joint venture partnership for each other? Even if the joint venture partnership doesn't go 2 ways, it can go sometimes 1 way, because a joint venture partnership isn't necessarily I'll promote my webinar to your list if you promote your webinar to my list. It doesn't always work that way, because let's say, for example, obviously my market is coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, and trainers. Okay, so obviously all of those need to know how to speak, how to run webinars, and how to get their message across. But one of the coaches, who would, they may also be teaching people who need to speak. It might well be that I'm a fit for their list. So, for example, let's take somebody who is a social networking expert. Now, that's a great fit for me, because people who speak and want to do webinars need to know how to use social media, and vice versa. But I might work with a coach, and their list might be a other coaches, but one of the things, let's say, I don't know, somebody's doing relationship coaching. Now, my list are not going to really be interested in relationship coaching, so it might not work. In fact, that's probably a bad example because they're probably not interested in speaking either. But what I'm trying to say here is that you might find that there are joint venture partnerships where it works one way but not the other. Does that make sense? So what you've got to do there instead is say, well, okay, if you promote me to your list, what can I do instead? Because actually, and you've got to stand up and say, actually, it's not relevant for your topic is not relevant for my list. So it could be instead that you do the joint venture on a commission basis. Okay, you promote me, you promote my webinar, any sales that you're going to get from it, I will give you whatever percentage. There might be other things that you do as well. Okay. So fantastic. Again, for example, yeah, Sheena does performance speaking as well. So, you know, that's obviously very close, and there are also overlaps sometimes, you know, like for example, speaking is a massive topic. So some people specialize in webinars, some people specialize in video, some people specialize on the stage. So you've got all that kind of thing going on as well, where you know, you really want to have a look with JV partners. Okay, the next traffic method is forums. I have had so much success in forums. Now, the other thing is, where forums are really helpful is to actually build those relationships with your JV partners. I've got some fantastic JV partners, as I've said. But the reason for that is because I took the time and trouble to get to know them. Now, I go to a monthly mastermind group where I meet people, but that isn't enough. You have to keep up with them in between those meetings, and that's where the forums come in. And there are also people where the mastermind group that I'm part of, it's got big and it's now split over 2 days. So I go to the Wednesday group, and there are people who are on the Thursday group that I don't know very well, even though we're in the same program. So it's the forums where I've got to know these people, and then, you know, you get to know them through posting and answering questions, and then you build up a relationship, and then you say, oh, hey, should we get on Skype and have a chat? You know, if you just go straight in and think, oh, there's a connection with the topic, will you joint venture with me? Don't be surprised if they say, no, I don't know you. You know, I don't know what you're like. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I'm going to trust my list with you. So you've got to get to know them. And, you know, there was one guy that I met on the weekend, actually. He came up to me and said, oh, I've seen you posting in the forum. And, you know, we recognized each other from, you know, posting in the forum. So he made a point of coming over to introduce himself to me, and then we got chatting and, you know, found out that there was a good synergy there. And now when we go to our Christmas do, which all of us go into 2 days, you know, we can now really deepen that relationship and then start thinking about joint ventures. So, you know, there's loads of stuff that you can do here to start getting, you know, bums on seats. And finally, you know, last few things, you've got solo ads. So that's basically where you know, you might not have the ability to JV with them in the traditional sense, so you just simply pay them to send, you know, your details out to their list. You've got live networking, and you've got the old-fashioned put up an opt-in page and use search engine optimization. So there are loads of ways there that you can use to get, you know, bums on seats and get people to your webinars. I have to say though also, you know, you might not get massive JVs with people, but if you build up good relationships with people, very often they will share it on their social network for you. So, you know, you've got that as an option as well. So that's the A of running webinars, is making sure you've got an audience and that your audience is basically sold out. Now, the next thing that we need to look at is how you build and deliver your webinar, and there's a few parts to this. So the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to choose your platform. And this is the bit where people really are now got more choice than ever before, and this is where people are coming to me, because most of the webinar trainers out there, they're in two camps. They've pretty much sold on GoToWebinar, and all they'll teach you to do is use GoToWebinar. And then there's another camp where You've got people who've developed their own software, generally the ones that go with the Google Hangouts, so they're plugins. But as far as I can tell, so far, I'm the only person who's looking at them all and will give you an honest opinion and an unbiased opinion on all of them from my own experience. And not only that, I'm giving training on all of them. So my product that I've put together, I have got tutorials on 3 of them at the minute. But I'm going to be adding to that, and I'm going to make sure that there are tutorials for all the major ones. Obviously, I haven't bought all of them because that would be a bit ridiculous. But the ones that I've experimented with a lot of them, and the ones that I think, yeah, I like these, I'm going to be making sure that there are tutorials on them for you. So the next thing that we're going to look at is mistakes to avoid, that #1 key insight that I promised you, and how to keep people with you. So with no further ado then, let's have a little gander at these platforms. Now, let me just ask you, okay, I want you to type in for me, of the webinars that you attend, which platforms have you seen in action? Type in for me and let me know which platforms you've seen in action, and particularly the ones that you've seen in action most. Yeah, here we go. Go to webinar, go to webinar. Any more, guys? Has any of you kind of regularly attended anybody else's? Yeah, go to meeting, but Mac doesn't like it, no? Yeah, Webinar Express, go to webinar, Google Hangouts. Yeah, instant teleseminar. No, instant teleseminar is quite good. Yeah, go to Hangouts and mostly, yeah. Yeah, so those are the most popular ones. Right, now, I've got some good news for you. First of all, tell me, stick your hands up. How many of you are currently running webinars? Yeah, well done, Sheena. Sheena's bought Meatcheap. I'm going to be talking to you all about Meatcheap shortly. How many of you are currently running webinars? Yeah, Richard, thank you. Is that all? No one else? Okay, want to learn? Well, that's what I'm here for. Okay, so if we look at GoToWebinar first then, especially for beginners, if you're just going to be beginning, how many webinars are you going to be doing on a regular basis to start with? Oh, Trace, you've got Evergreen. That's another one of my favorites. Not used it yet. You're in the right place. Okay, so yeah, would like to do 2 a week. Okay, if you're doing 2 a week, that's good. Yeah, one scheduled for 19th of December, 1 a week. Okay, fantastic. But very often what happens when you first start is you'll do one, and it's a few weeks before you'll do another one, and then maybe a few weeks before you'll do another one. Who really seriously wants to pay $99 a month, for 100 seats when you don't need to? And this is coming back to a question that I was asked right at the very beginning. Yeah, not on your Nelly. I like it. No way. Absolutely. Now, this is the thing. People often say, yeah, but GoToWebinar is the best. I do have to say I quite like GoToWebinar. I do not like the price of GoToWebinar, and especially, when I ran my great big joint venture with Joe, I was limited because I'd only bought the 100 seats, and I had 535 people register for it. So I lost out there. There was no way I was at that point going to spend $400 for the next one up, which is I think 500 seats. Absolutely no way. No, yeah, $400. I think it jumps up to $399, something like that. And you don't have to. Now, here's what's really good about GoToWebinar. It's easy to set up. It's easy to use. It's easy to operate. Things I don't like about GoToWebinar, although at the moment you can see my webcam on the screen, whenever I've used it in the past, it doesn't record the webcam. Now, I asked the techie guys, why doesn't the recording, so that anybody who's watching on replay rather than the main thing, and they just told me it couldn't be done, and they said it was I don't know, they gave me some crazy answer to do with legal stuff, and I thought, well, other platforms record a webcam, so why is there a problem? Who knows? And for me, I find it quite important that people can see me, because when you use your webcam, it's all about developing that, personality and getting people so that they can see you, because people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And when you can see somebody and you can see what they look like, and yes, okay, you can hear a certain amount in the voice, but when they can see you and you can look into the webcam and they can see the whites of your eyes and they can get to tell whether you're sincere or not, or whether you're, to me it's important. Now, for people beginning, don't panic. I'm not going to say you have to use a webcam. You don't have to. But certainly once you want to start building a relationship, you really do want to, let people see you. Yeah, and see your smile. Thank you, Richard. Because it's who you are, It's not like selling a big corporate company. When we're looking at online businesses and stuff like that, very often we are our business. It's kind of coming away from what we used to be taught, that you want to make yourself out to look bigger than you actually are. People are buying from personalities these days. So, your personality is important. But when you're beginning, then when you're beginning, you might just want to put a photograph up, and you might just want to do more informal hangouts or videos where at least you can, take a few takes before people see you. Yeah, absolutely, Trace. You're selling, so you should be seen. That's in my book. But GoToWebinar, one thing I don't like about it, doesn't record it. Now, here's my other bugbear with GoToWebinar. How many of you, I'm going to put your hands down, okay? Stick your hands up for me. How many of you are using Aweber as your autoresponder? Let's have a look, see how many of you are using Aweber. Yeah, we got quite a few MailChimp users. Now, I don't know. I don't use MailChimp that much. I have actually got a MailChimp list, but I don't use it that much anymore. Okay, here's my commitment to you. I'm going to investigate how GoToWebinar works with MailChimp, because there's fewer of you using Aweber than I thought. But a lot of people do use Aweber, and the big thing that's a problem with it is it will not integrate with GoToWebinar. GoToWebinar and Aweber don't like each other because what happens is, and this is also something that I found on my big JV webinar with Joe when I got 535 people sign up. But because there is no one way where they get both onto the GoToWebinar attendee list and at the same time onto the Aweber list. You have to import them from the GoToWebinar list into Aweber. But Aweber doesn't like third-party imports, so it will insist on a double opt-in. Even though they've already opted in to GoToWebinar, they have to then confirm. And that's a pain, and you lose a lot of people from your list that way, so it's not great from that point of view. I'm just getting aware that, crikey, time is... Do you know what, guys? I've got so much to teach you about webinars. Seriously, an hour's webinar really isn't long enough. So let me run through some of the others for you. First of all, this one down here in the bottom in the middle, welcome, you have me at hello. This is a platform which is run by a company called GVO, Global Virtual Opportunity. I put my teeth in. Global Virtual Opportunities, GVO. And I love this platform. It gives you the webcam that comes up in the top right-hand corner, and it comes out in the recording as well. It gives you the presentation window in the middle. There's a chat. Now, the thing is with the GoToWebinar stuff, the chat function isn't brilliant, and I find it very unwieldy to make it work. So, I've not seen anybody who uses GoToWebinar a lot enable the chat function. But one of the things that I love about this platform is the chat function. You've got the choice. You can enable it or you can disable it, and it's really easy peasy. I love to see interaction. That's one of the things about engagement, you know, is the interaction. Now, this platform is the basis of both Meetcheap and Evergreen Business Systems Live. Now, Evergreen Business Systems started off as a video webinar system where you record a video and you basically put it into the Evergreen software, and what happens then is instead of it happening at a time and that's it, it happens at any time. So people get the choice. You set all this up previously. You get the choice as to whether or not they listen to the webinar immediately as if it's a replay of an old one, and it can look like it's a live webinar even though it's not. Now, I prefer not to kind of do that. A lot of people say that it's a good thing, but I actually don't want to say that it's live if it's not. Okay, if people want to make that assumption, then okay, but I would prefer not to be inauthentic like that and just, you know, let people know that it's a recorded webinar. But then they went and also added on a live version, and the live version, basically they're using this GVO platform. Now, what's great about Evergreen Business Systems, and this is far superior than GoToWebinar, and it is a lot cheaper. They have got the most amazing marketing platform. You have one registration form that is built for you within Evergreen, and what that does is it puts your attendees onto the Evergreen attendee list, and at the same time it will integrate with Aweber or MailChimp or whoever you want, except for Infusionsoft. Which is, I've just changed from Aweber to Infusionsoft, which is why I'm currently using GoToWebinar for this tonight instead of Evergreen, because Infusionsoft and GoToWebinar work lovely together. Infusionsoft and Evergreen don't. However, I am on a mission and I'm going to make it work because it's supposed to work with Infusionsoft. But I'm guessing not too many of you. I know some of you actually here tonight will be using Infusionsoft, so that is something I am going to find out and make happen. But the marketing behind it is incredible. You can, you know, make it go viral by offering freebies. The marketing system behind it is amazing. It's something like $497 to buy, one off for the automated Evergreen one. You have to buy that before you can get the live, but then the live is $29 a month for 100 seats as opposed to $99 a month with GoToWebinar. Once you get up to 500 seats, GoToWebinar, $400 a month, Evergreen, $69 a month. So big difference. That's why I'm a huge fan, okay? Even better, Meetcheap. Now, Meetcheap also uses this same system. What you don't get with Meetcheap is all of the marketing fandango that you get with Evergreen. So you have to do all that yourself. But if you've got Optimized Press, you can set up your, and let's say you've got Optimized Press and Aweber, bit of extra work. Meetcheap is $10 a month, $9.99 a month for 100 seats. I mean, it's incredible. It's brilliant. I love it. And incidentally, I have bought Evergreen and the live version and Meetcheap. And I use Meetcheap for my member-only webinars. So my 5-star speaker system, my people who bought into that, I'm doing regular webinars with them, just members only, content only. And I'm too lazy to set up a registration page every time. With Meetcheap, I don't have to do that. I just send them a link, send them a time, click this link at that time, guys, and we're on. It's so easy. It's fabulous. I love it. Recordings are easy. They can be a bit clunky. They can take a little while to load up. Oops, I've gone. Let's go back. It takes a little while to load up, but it is fantastic. Okay, now Google Hangouts. Again, Trace asked me earlier on, what about Google Hangouts and how do they compare? All right, what's great about Google Hangouts is it's free. What's great about Google Hangouts is there is no limit to numbers. So even if you had more than 1,000 people, which GoToWebinar is the tops, if you're paying $500 a month for, you still can't have any more than 1,000. I don't think most of us need to worry about that right now. You know, when we've got, you know, real mega guru status, we might want to worry about having more than 1,000 people on our webinar. But what's great about Google Hangouts is it's more fun. You can get more interaction because you can have up to 10 people on Google Hangout with you. So if you're running a small coaching program, something like that, you can get Google Hangouts and, you know, you can get a lot of interaction. It can look very professional. You know, you can have all sorts of effects. You can have like the lower third with your name and your slogan across the bottom. You can get the chat functions going. You can share the screen very easily and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's the downside of Google Hangouts. If you ask a question, there's anything up to, it's on average about 45 seconds delay. So if I say, right, stick your hands up, well, you can't stick your hands up on Google Hangouts because they don't have them, unlike GoToWebinar. But if I say, right, type in the box, yes or no, in the chat box, you're not going to get a response for 45 seconds. That's an awful long time. And I've heard that sometimes it can be up to 2 minutes, okay? So, yeah, it's not that great. Never mind, you know, it is good for some things. Now, here's the other thing. It depends what you're going to be using your webinars for. If you're doing kind of business coaching or any kind of coaching with more than 10 people, in order to get more than 10 on, you have to go on air. Clearly, it's not a good idea to go on air when you're doing coaching about private stuff, because anybody can listen in. Not a good idea. Fantastic for when you're selling and you want, you know, anybody and everybody who's interested to come on board. Not so great if you're using it for educational purposes. If there's only 10 of you, then you don't have to go on air. You can have a private hangout, and that's fantastic. The only problem is you can only record the hangout if you're on air. Okay, I hope I'm making sense here. You have to go on air to record to record your Google Hangouts, because it's a broadcast. It's like broadcasting a TV show, and you have to use on air if you want more than 10. If you want to record it but you don't want to go on air, and you've only got up to 10 people, you can use Hangouts. But then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to use some kind of screen capture recording like Camtasia or ScreenFlow or Snagit or something like that, so that you can record it. Again, I've got so much more to tell you about all of these, but there's just, you know, I promised you I'd be done in an hour, and I'm kind of running out of time already. Webinar Express and some of the others, Webinar Alchemy and Webinar Express, are both plugins to use with Google Hangouts, where it makes it look fancier, and it gives you registration pages, and it makes it look more professional. I've got Webinar Express. I bought the Webinar Alchemy training because there's some good training in there. I'm actually looking forward to getting to know Stephen Renton a bit more. Joe's invited me onto a hangout with them shortly, tomorrow night in fact, I think, which I'm looking forward to. And the training is lovely. There's some great stuff in there. It's certainly worth $47. I don't know what else to say really, other than I haven't actually bought the plug-in part of it. If you want the plug-in, I think that's an extra $97 on top. So yeah, but you know, what I love is that there's so much choice now. You've got good old AnyMeeting, which is free, but they're actually putting more and more restrictions on now for it being free. And Instant Teleseminar is also much lower cost than GoToWebinar and does a decent job. I'm actually running out of time to go into all the functions and features of these. I can't remember why I stopped using Instant Teleseminar now. I mean, it's not that cheap, and I think it was because I wasn't using it, getting the use out of it as I was. But you know, in my kind of program, guys, I'm going to have tutorials on nearly all of these, and the ones that I don't buy, I'm going to see if I can get a free trial just to make some tutorials for you. What I want to do, and what nobody else is doing, is giving you a choice and giving you different ones, because it does depend how you're going to use them. Okay. Any questions before I move off of the platforms? because I'm gonna have to go some to get this done by. Yeah, Sheena, you got webinar. Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it, Sheena? I quite like webinar alchemy. All right, fantastic. Moving on then. Okay, if you've got any questions, please put them in my either in my Facebook pages or on webinardiva.com somewhere in the comments. Okay, so so that's the platform. Right, some mistakes to avoid. I'm going to blitz through these because they're a bit obvious, really. Big long silences. You do not want to be having big long silences. You're going to have to get into the habit of getting used to talking, even if there's a gaffe and there's something that you need to sort out. You need to just get into the habit of talking your way over it. Okay. The only time I would say that that doesn't really apply is, you know, while you're waiting for everybody to join beforehand. You know, so very often you can just say hi and welcome, and then you can be quiet and go off and do what you need to do, you know, until the actual kind of webinar starts. One of the things that you need to do also is rehearse. Now, this might sound like a mixed message. On the one hand, I'm telling everybody, do not worry about making mistakes. Don't worry about being perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. If you saw my advent calendar, and if you haven't, you need to go and check out my advent calendar, because on the 3rd of December, I got some fabulous outtakes of Ant and Dec. Now, Ant and Dec, as far as I'm concerned, are the best presenters on the planet. And if anybody's listening to this who's not in the UK, then you need to just Google them and go and have a look. I'm pretty certain they're quite well known around the world, actually. But they're amazing. They make mistakes. They do a lot of live TV. They make a lot of mistakes. But that doesn't mean to say that you should be shoddy. You should be well prepared. You should be the best that you can be, and you should rehearse. Okay? Then if you make the odd fluff, it doesn't matter. But don't disrespect people by not bothering to put something decent together in the first place. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not being too harsh and too firm there. But you know, you really do need to. Now, all right, this is where you're going to have to do as I say and not do as I do. I'm always overrunning because I always do. Right, this is a mistake I make because I try and give so much content away that I do get the timing wrong. But you need to be aware of it, and just you need to, like I've done tonight. I've said, hey guys, I've got behind a bit, you know, so I'm going to need to speed up now to get this finished. Don't just go on and on and on and on if you can help it. Alrighty, forgetting your audience is there. Sometimes people don't engage because I don't know why. It's almost as though they forget that they've got an audience who's listening to them, so you don't converse with them. And then you kind of go into robot mode and you're just doing a talk over a slide presentation. I've heard some people who are fantastic on stage, but they kind of don't talk to their audience as though they're there in the room with them when they come on a webinar. So you do need to remember you've got people there. Talk to them, ask questions, engage them, you know, pick up their stuff, and all of that, you know, answer their questions, greet them by name if you can, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Remember that they're there. And then there's going into presenter mode. You know, all of a sudden, oh, I'm live on TV and I now need to have a personality transplant, and none of my personality is going to come over, and I'm going to go into a monotonous robot and I'm going to read my slides and I'm going to... No! Fortunately, all right, you have to be professional, but you don't have to be a robot, you know? Again, you need to bring your personality out. Don't overfill your slides. I've seen stuff which is almost impossible to read because there's just too much on there. And then, of course, if you're using a webcam, remember to look into it. You know, people want to see your eyes. They want to see a connection with you, and they can't build a connection with you if you're down here at your keyboard and reading your notes and, you know, all of that kind of thing. Now, that's not to say you can't look at your notes. I frequently look away. I check to make sure that, you know, I'm still coming up on the other computer. I do look down at my notes. I do have to sometimes look at the screen and all that kind of stuff. But you have to come back to looking into the camera as well. And try not to move too much. My camera is well oversensitive and it goes real fuzzy on me when I move around too much. Okay. So number one key insight, put your content into a system. Now, for me, I've got 2 products, and they're both built around a system. I've got my 5-star speaker system, and then I've got my webinars, which are basically the 4 Ps. So it can be something fancy, it can be something simple. I probably will put together a model and a nice system to put my webinar training around. But people can remember that there's 4 Ps to webinars. It's all about the planning, all about the presentation itself, all about the platform you use, and then all about how you promote it. Yeah, and these are the things that we talked about tonight. Alrighty, so that's the key insight. And then to keep them with you, now I've been having a little look and a gander, and it's really nice because my attention rate is really quite high. So that's pretty cool, and the reason that, you know, for that is because of some of the things that I'm doing, and a lot of that is asking questions. People can't type into Facebook and Twitter if you're asking questions. They got to, you know, they got to kind of think about what you're asking them. Especially if you ask them to type the, you know, the answer to the questions in the chat box. Get them to use a fill in the blanks handout. You know, the one that I've given you. You're more likely to be engaged with me in the material if you're filling in the blanks as you go through the handout than you are if you didn't have that in the first place. Now, I haven't done this evening, but it's something that you can use and play with and experiment with, and that's use polls. I've asked you questions like who uses GoToWebinar and all the rest of it. If I'd wanted to, I could have sort of said, you know, okay, who do you use? And I could have put GoToWebinar and a couple of others. Or I could have used for used a poll, for example, for the autoresponders. And again, use the variety of your delivering. You know, don't be boring. Have the webcam as well as slides. You know, for some webinars, I come off a PowerPoint presentation and I go into desktop sharing. You know, which I'm going to do in a tick. I'm going to fail miserably. No, I'm not going to fail miserably. If, with your permission, I'm going to go over by about 5 minutes or so, because I am going to show you the screen in just a little tick. You know, tease out the content. Again, I've done like the whole ABC, and you know, you want to know what the ABC is, and you know, we've kind of gone through them. So that's the B. You know, that's how you build and deliver. Okay, the C is how you cash in, and this is how you now monetize your webinars. So first of all, you can have a free webinar with a sale at the end. Pretty much what I'm doing tonight. You know, most of mine is content when there's going to be a very small sale at the end. But what I'm hoping is that by sharing what I have done with you so far, you'll see, well, you can tell quite clearly that I've still got more to say on all of these subjects. You know, so if you know, really want to know how to get off the ground with webinars, it's pretty obvious that you need more than what I've given you tonight. So it's a kind of natural thing to move on. Okay. You can do interview the experts. So it hasn't got to be all about you. You can interview other people on webinars, and then you can sell that. You know, it's incredible. Something called the broker method. Now, one of my guys, one of my really good friends who's in my mastermind group, he uses this method. He's a GP, and what he does is he puts free webinars together for other GPs for their CPD. And then what he does is he gets sponsorship and all sorts of, you know, he gets payment from other ways. Now, I've heard of vets doing this. I was on a webinar with Daniel Wagner, and he was giving the story of a vet who'd done exactly the same thing, and it's working really, really well. You can put content creation together, so you can put free webinars together, and then once you've done a whole load of them, you can sell them as a series. And in fact, you know, this is one of the methods for delivering, you know, some of my programs. You can do a bog standard paid webinar series, you know, so buy this program and we're going to have so many webinars over so many weeks. You can have the perpetual and evergreen ones, so that it's not a launch, it's kind of an ongoing thing. So there are loads of different ways. And again, I can share with you in more detail, you know, at another time or in the program, exactly how you can use all of these methods. But it's fantastic for building your list. It's fantastic for growing your relationship with your list. It's fantastic for actually getting people to buy from you as well. Okay, so that's it. Now here is how you can get a little bit more of me. As I said, now I'm going to keep this really brief. You've got two choices. You can either buy my program called Wicked Webinars, or you can take a step further and get my what I'm calling Webinar Magic, which is a 12-week coaching program starting in January. But there's some special early bird discounts because it's my tomorrow's Advent calendar gift where I've got a special offer. Now I'm just going to share my screen so that you can see. Okay, so basically Wicked Webinars. I'm going to be selling this later on at $67, but for tomorrow it's going to be $37. So that's what, £22. It's a steal. And everything that I've been talking about tonight, basically, I'm just going to go into a lot more detail. Now, here's the thing. I am not going to give you a massive long sales spiel on this. I promised I wouldn't, and I'm going to stick to that because I made a video. And in this video, you will see everything that's in this program, or where the techie tutorials are. Although the one thing I want to say here is not only am I going to be unbiased and give you lots of techie stuff, and I'm going to be adding to these. I'm going to do a section on Hangouts. I'm going to do a section on Webinar Express and all that. In fact, I've already got training on Webinar Express. I just need to add it. But also it's about the presentation itself. That's something that a lot of other people are not giving you, is how to put together the speaking bit of it, you know, how to put your slides together, how to put sale together and all that kind of stuff. So as I say, for today and tomorrow only, it's $37. Then it's going to go up. It's not going to go up much. It's only going to go up to $47, but in the new year it will go up to $67. Okay, and you're going to get all of these things here. I'm not going to go on. I said I wouldn't, but I do believe it's really good value, and I do believe you'll learn an awful lot out of it. Now, some people want a bit more hand-holding, so I've put together Webinar Magic, which is this big, long 12-week program where you're going to go into those 4 core modules in a lot more depth. You're going to get assignments, and then you're going to get 12, where is it? You're going to get 12 weekly Q&A webinars where you can hot seat and answer your questions. Now, those are not tutorial webinars. The tutorial stuff will be done separately through videos and assignments. So this is your chance to get your questions answered and to really work closely in making sure you're confident and comfortable with a webinar that is going to sell. Not just about, you know, and give you guidance on what help you to decide which platform that you're going to use, and, you know, show you how to use them and all that kind of stuff. Plus, of course, we'll have the Facebook group. Now, it doesn't start till January, but there's loads of pre-course material and homework to get you going, because believe me, there is a lot to learn. You'll also get a one-to-one strategy session with me, and to get you off on the right foot. Now, I've got other levels. We've got gold and diamond, where basically, in addition to the group coaching sessions, you get one-to-ones. So the where am I? Have I put it down? I don't think I put it down there. How stupid. Right, the gold, you're going to get 6 30-minute one-to-ones, and the diamond, you're going to get 12 30-minute one-to-ones. So there's an awful lot of one-to-one stuff to help you here, and I'm delighted to announce that I'm going to get help with this from a wonderful man called Terry Malloy, who is a brilliant strategist. Now, Terry ran the first ever online competition a few years ago, which was won by a guy called Christian Pankhurst, and it was the world's, or was it UK's first ever top coach. And Christian, you know, Terry's been part of the team around Christian, and Christian went from being 100,000 in debt to, you know, being over 2 million in credit. So, you know, in a short space of time. So Terry is a real asset, and he's going to come on and help me to deliver the higher levels, and he'll probably come on to some of the actual hot seats as well, because he's like that. He's brilliant, and I only found out that he could actually do it about 5 o'clock this evening, so I'm really delighted to do that. Now, I can only accept a certain amount of people, so this is application only, and also it's not fair to take money off anyone who's not ready. So, you know, basically, if you're interested, fill in the application form. And this is, I've got a special advent calendar thing here. I've got the full price, which is what it'll be in January, the early bird, which is between now and the end of December. And for one day only on my advent calendar special offer, I've got a lower price here. So that is pretty much it. If you're really serious about webinars, I would urge you to consider some of those. Right, okay, let's get me PowerPoint question back. PowerPoint back. So have you got any questions? Oh, I've lost my control panel. Come back. Cool. Have you got any questions, guys? Let me just check the questions out. Oh, and in a moment, I'm going to give you a template as well that you can use. All right, let me just go to my questions. Alrighty, so yes, this is being recorded. Oh wow, I've got a message there where somebody says that the slide suddenly went all over the place. Yeah, the presenter mode is your main worry, Trace. Don't worry, we can help you through that. It's one of those things that, you know, with the right help and guidance, you will get used to it. You know, you really will. It's one of those things, the more webinars you do, the more comfortable you'll get with it. And what I say is, if you're afraid of being that presenter, is you just start off with just a few friends. You know, start off with a nice friendly audience. And in fact, a lot of people who are really successful nowadays, I remember one guy sharing that his first ever webinar, he had 2 people there. One was his mum and the other was his dog. Not in the same room with him. I think that they were either in another room in the house or at his mum's house. She was at her house and he was at his, or something like that. And then, you know, I think the first one I ever did, I had 6 people, and 4 of those were my mates. So, you know, start off, and then gradually, the more you do, it's like anything, you become more skilled, and the more skilled you are, the more comfortable you will become. And the more technical difficulties you have to deal with, the more adept at dealing with the technical difficulties you will become, if that makes sense. Is it still? Yes, absolutely worth doing a webinar if you have no list. That is how I built my list. When I did my first ever webinar, I had 0 people on my list. By the time the webinar had been finished, I had 52 people on my list. Okay, not humongous, but it was a start. And every single time I run a webinar, I add new people to my list without fail. So it's an amazing list building tool, even if it takes you a little while to start making sales. Okay, any other questions? Okay, no questions. No, any questions about the program? Again, I'm going to blow my own trumpet here and say I'm the only person who's doing the unbiased approach. So cool. All right, there's no other questions. So in that case, what I'm going to do is, you know, just say go and post questions either on my Public Speaking Academy Facebook page or my Webinar Diva. So it's just facebook.com/Webinar Diva. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, something that I didn't do and I should have done. There we go. How silly. I am going to put the links. There we go. I'm going to move everything out of the way now. Go to webinar, hides everything. Okay, I'm going to put the links to those programs in the little box here so that you can click on them without struggling to find them. Okay, this is one of the things I really don't like. There we go, that's one gone. So one of the things I don't like about GoToWebinar, it's so much easier in Evergreen and Meet Sheet to do this. There we go, I've pasted them in. Alrighty. So those are the links for the programs. I wish you all a very, very good evening. If there are no more questions, I'm going to go and get ready for my next webinar that I'm running at 9 p.m. And I know I'm going to see some of you there. So I'm looking forward to that very much. All right. Have a lovely evening and good luck with webinars. And do me a favour, I want you to post your progress in my page, preferably the Webinar Diva page. I want to know how you're getting on. Post your questions. Let me help you because I really am passionate. It is the quickest, easiest way that you can get your stuff out there, that you can build your relationship with your audience and build your following of raving fans, and then actually start, you know, turning those raving fans into customers and loyal customers at that as well. So I shall see you, no doubt, on the next webinar. Take care. In fact, don't bother taking care. Have fun instead. That's far more fun. Take risks. Have fun.